Welcome into the I-80 Club Saturday morning coffee show. Josh Peterson, Jack Mitchell. If you're hanging out with us, you might be a patron, or you might just be hanging out with us on YouTube on this Saturday morning, September the 21st. We are not putting this behind the paywall. The plan was, Jack, like, woo, they'll win the Friday game. We'll hop on. They'll be 4-0. Let's celebrate. And instead, they move backwards in overtime, and they fall to 3-1 on the season. How are you?
Jackal Shot got another Coke Zero, they say. No, but plans did not go the way that we thought that they would. And here we are, Sunday morning. Josh after a late night. Me after not such a late night. You know,
shout out to you for getting some sleep.
I was, I get in that place after Nebraska loses right after it. Like, I don't need any content on this. I don't need to put it. I've got a show tomorrow where I'm going to be able to say whatever I want. It's probably better if I sleep on it and let everybody do their deal. I knew you were going to have a really late night. So shout out to you for being here. And so, yeah, I listened to Rule Talk after the game. I, of course, kind of scrolled Twitter a bit before I went to bed, but like, I have not. So here's what I have done. I have not I started interacting a little bit on our chat about an hour ago on one of our channels. I have rewatched like a 15-minute version of the game. Okay. I've looked at the box score and that's kind of where I am right now. So I'm kind of somewhat unaffected by the outside world so far. So I'm sort of curious what you'll say. I don't know exactly what you'll say. I know a little bit of what some of our members have said. I've got my own opinions, but I don't know where you want to start, Josh. I got lots to say, but I don't know where you want to start with this whole thing. I mean,
well, a couple things. First of all, D'Lo says Jack does look refreshed. Notice how he mentions you look refreshed. I'll
take that compliment.
You look like you did a show last night from a truck. Jack, you don't get that reference yet, but
no.
My God, John and somebody commented it looked like we were in the back of I'm going to find some tweets. Looked like we were in a semi. And that ended up turning into the only reason that we laughed for the final hour of the show. It was so freaking okay. Yeah, here I found one of the tweets when John and I then started playing into it. We had I tweeted the wrong thing, or I posted the wrong thing in our Discord chat. My bad, everybody. But yeah, so that was the one thing that kind of changed everything, that made it very, very nice for us. So yeah, there we are driving a truck. Doesn't that look exactly like it?
Yeah, it looks like you have like your radio equipment looks like a CB.
Exactly.
You know, like a breaker 19.
Oh, and I just realized it was, I don't know if he's in here this morning, but it was one of our subscribers, Joe, and I just found the original text that he sent to the station. He says, I know the loss sucks, but I'm laughing because on YouTube it looks like you're both in a truck driving down the road.
That's good.
So
comic relief, man. Yeah. We laugh so we don't cry.
We do indeed. Before we dive in, like and subscribe. Oh, there's Joe. Honk, honk. Like and subscribe to the YouTube page. If you're new here, if you've never been here for one of these, we do a Saturday morning coffee show every week, usually just for patrons. But because of the way this week worked out, we decided to take this one out of the paywall. We've been doing a ton of content so far. I think that this might be like the 15th podcast of the month so far, 14th podcast of the month. We're on quite the tear. We'd love to have you. Patreon.com/I80 Club as well, for as low as $5 or $8 a month. You can subscribe there and you can get access to every single show that we do. And again, like and subscribe to the YouTube page. All right, enough of that. We're on for 90 minutes today. Jack, you start. I talked for 2 hours last night. Somebody asked how long we go last night. 2 hours. What's the top line takeaway that you have from Nebraska's 31-24 overtime loss to Illinois?
We have all, the rest of the hour and a half and days on our shows and this program going forward to break down the X's and the O's and the play calls and the schematic failures. But what it comes down to, and what it really comes down to, in my opinion, Josh, is the same thing that we have talked about on this program. And in fact, the entire football program has tried to be ready for a moment like this, to the point that they've discussed it constantly. They've branded around it. They have understood the problem, that when it comes to brass tacks and the pressure gets hot in a moment, Nebraska has a history over multiple coaching staffs of being unable to meet the moment, and they know it.
Yeah.
They have branded an entire summer around it, Josh.
Yeah.
And we have called it, I've dubbed it over the years, the bleep moment. And you can pick where it happened. You can maybe disagree about where it happened. Was it Lindenmeyer not, being able to catch that touchdown? Was it the missed field goal? It's probably one of those two things.
Yeah, because they overcame some oh shit moments multiple times throughout the game, right? Like multiple times they kind of they overcame them. Yeah.
Like when they got the turnover, I thought, oh my gosh, is this it? Is this the different one? The drive was going downfield.
Great drive.
But then the drive was really good. But then you don't get the touchdown. That was so like you can tell as soon as he doesn't catch that, you're like, oh no. And they got to kick the field goal now. And there's 3 minutes left or whatever it is. And then he misses the field goal. And when that field goal went no good, you didn't know how you knew. Again, you knew,
the
Josh.
amazing thing is that it didn't happen in regulation. In that moment, so
still,
John and I, we're walking back, and in that moment, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, they're about to lose in regulation. And then it somehow goes into overtime. And
but you still knew.
You still didn't really believe, did you?
You still knew, and it took one play for Illinois for you to be sure about it, right?
Yeah.
One play right down there, and the same thing happens again. And yes, are there individual issues that went wrong? For sure. But every loss is a compilation of individual issues that go together. And once again, the worst ones happened within winning time. After the bleep moment, right? The worst ones happened there. And for goodness sakes, it all looked the same, Josh. Again, on every part of it. Every part of the game got worse when the things ratcheted up higher. Coaching and playing.
Yeah.
Blocking got worse. Tackling got worse. Play calling got worse. Time management got worse. Everything got worse. Everything got worse at the end. And Illinois looked cool as a freaking cucumber. Nebraska looked like a team that has lost 73 of these games over the last 10 years in the last minute. And guess what? They did again. And here you are again, Josh. All you want to do is come through in that situation, but you keep not coming through in that situation. And it's harder and harder. It's like a shovel digging a hole. And it's another scoop in that hole that you're trying to get out of mentally when you continue to not be able to come through in that moment. And this time, the amazing thing, Josh, is they knew it. It's not like it was some unspoken secret like it might have been in the past. It wasn't like the coaches had been, maybe coming out in the past and saying, we don't think we're cursed at the end of the game, blah, blah, blah. No, Matt Rule talked about it all summer, right? He talked about it all fall. It was being better in that moment. And they still didn't do it. They still didn't do it. So you throw up your hands as a fan or as a coach and you say, how are you ever going to do it? Like, because it feels like you've got to do it in the future, but they can't ever take that first step in these games.
Yeah,
That's my thought.
They say that the great players, it's not that they raise their level of play in the crunch time moments. It's that they don't, that the moment doesn't get too much for them and everybody else actually drops down. And so what looks to be Mahomes raising his level, it's actually him just being the same he always is, but everybody else is a little bit worse. And I couldn't help but think about that as I watch Illinois look, I mean, if anything, better in the third and fourth, certainly in the fourth quarter, and then in the 2 plays in overtime, better than they did at any point during the game, where the yards are now coming so easy to them. Everything is coming so easy to them. And to Nebraska, it looks like they are trying so very, very hard to just do anything, to do absolutely anything. Where, Illinois scores in 2 plays, Nebraska takes a snap on the other side of the 50 in overtime. Like what? I mean, that is some like next level impossible.
Their defensive line fearlessly pinned their ears back as soon as they got into overtime.
Dude, oh my gosh.
And Nebraska did not have that ability. The defensive line that we talked about, and we gave a whole lot of praise over the first few weeks. They were not the defensive line that pinned their freaking ears back and outplayed and individually beat guys in front of them to win the game.
Yeah, absolutely. Should we? Because I know that there's a lot of comments so far about moments in time or very specific aspects of the team, whether it's a whole side of the ball or play calls or individual players. Should we kind of hit on some of these things bit by bit and kind of figure out if there is some fact or fiction in a variety of these complaints because I really do want to unpack, the drive that ends with the missed field goal. I want to unpack the decision to kick the field goal to begin with. I certainly want to talk about special teams broadly, and obviously the defense as well. And I think, Jack, and Mickey says, you know what, maybe let's start with a positive. Mickey says, let's start with thank God for Dylan Raiola. Dylan Raiola, Jack, getting to watch that game in person. I said this to John last night too. The story for me, had Nebraska won, was going to be what a wonderful quarterback Nebraska has and will continue to have, because seeing the throws that he made in person, I mean, the touchdown at the end of the first half was stupid. The drive at the end of the drive at the end of the third quarter that led into the fourth, that they scored their final touchdown, right? To go up 24 to 20 or 24-17. The throws that he had multiple throws on that drive. What an incredible player. Bigelow, secondly, thank God for Jamal Banks and Isaiah Nayor.
Yeah. If it was a win, we would be talking crazy about those two
All
guys.
the concerns about those guys went by the wayside, right? Like Nayor, I guess he was a little spotty, but he still had a nice night.
They were both really good.
But Banks was awesome.
Yes.
And so it was like, holy shit, you got that stuff figured out. You're good to go. He is an incredible quarterback. Absolutely incredible quarterback to watch in person. But yeah, I mean, the takeaways for me, it does. I don't know about you, Jack, but when I think of this game, I will think defense first. Because you want to, I got this weird criticism last night from somebody, and everybody's mad right now, right? That they want all the media to own up for whatever. I don't know what it is. I was so wrong about the defense. I did not see this coming from the defense. I thought if Nebraska was going to go 3-1 in their first four, for example, because I thought they were going to go 4-0. I thought that the offense was going to have major growing pains, that the line is going to be a tire fire, that the running game is going to be a disaster. And while the line and the running game are not perfect right now, the reason, in my opinion, that they lost last night is because of the defense. Full stop. They were up 24-17. They couldn't get a stop. They Ole defense to begin overtime multiple times in the first half. They got a couple of nice takeaways. But they almost felt a little fluky too, those takeaways versus, maybe some traditional takeaways. D'Lo says that D looked like last year in crunch time just the whole game. Yeah, they did. That was the part.
That's a great way of putting it.
They were never great last night.
Very little pressure, wide open receivers, and then when Illinois got in the red zone or within the 10, just confusion. And I mean, their first touchdown, you can see it. Tommy Hill talking to Singleton, there was a coverage screw up on that first touchdown of the game, right into the what would it be in the north end zone at the beginning of the game. That was a coverage screw up on one of those tight end touchdowns, not the big man, but the other tight end touchdown that they had. Gifford couldn't get over, and he got a little picked on the play, but I don't think he would have got there anyway. It was a cover. I mean, the coverages weren't there. And Josh, how many times did you see freaking Altmaier drop back and have enough time to comfortably read the field and then find a guy with nobody, 4 yards any direction from him? Like the frequency with which they had open receivers with not much pressure on Altmaier was incredibly concerning. And so that all just to say is, that is the thing I was most surprised by, most disappointed with, I thought was most impactful. I mean, I think there's blame to go all over the place, but I think also most concerning for the rest of the season, because I'm afraid that we embraced a little bit of fool's gold maybe in those first few weeks.
Yeah, 100%. I think that the book is out on what to do versus the defense. Quick passes, getting rid of the ball fast, and just try it. I mean, here's the thing though, Jack. Even when Altmaier dropped back, took time, there was still no pressure.
Oh, and if there was pressure, he got out of it. Jamari Butler misses the sack back there, right? Nash had him once and got away, but it was nothing. Do you remember how it felt when Shedeur Sanders dropped back there? And it was like, oh God, every play he was just about to get buried. He had people bearing down, or even UTEP, any of that. And I that was one of the reasons I reacted like I did to Northern Iowa, is I didn't see that kind of, immediate pressure that you saw in those first two, that I was so excited about in those first two games, and it wasn't there. I mean,
and they had guys hanging out over the middle. Watching the game from up high, it's always interesting to see how it looks. But there is all of this space, right, that a team wants to get to, and sometimes they're able to, and sometimes they're not. Illinois seemingly was able to find that space all damn night. Damn night.
Yep, that little area, or go on the sidelines with a hook, right?
Yeah,
go on the sidelines with a hook or a little quick out to be able to have that. It's like they knew they had pass plays in their book. A dumb analogy because I'm not a football coach, but sometimes you got a couple of video game plays that work really well, and you're like, okay, I need 6 yards. This is a low risk one. I can almost always get. It felt like Illinois had those almost all night. But again, I lived in this world, Josh, when I imagined the rest of the season that Butler and Hutmaker and Ty Robinson were just going to be terrorizing quarterbacks. Just going to be terrorizing quarterbacks the entire year. And that did not happen almost at all.
No, Stumanji posted some stuff last night. I ended up using it on Overreaction as well. But he said your pressure discussion about sacks coming in bursts was spot on. And this is something, Jack, we talked about in the offseason. Ad nauseum, I mentioned a million times. But Nebraska, for those who missed it, 32 sacks total last year. 16 of them came in 2 games. And it's like, holy shit, that means 16 of the 32 came across 10 games. There was, I think, 1 game with 0, like 3 other games with 1. So, like, the sacks were really in those short bursts. Stumanji pointed out 2 sacks versus UTEP on 17 attempts. That's 11.7% sack percentage on dropbacks. That's pretty good. Colorado 6 on 40, 15%. Obviously, that's great. UNI was 1 on 32, and I believe last night the number that I have was 2 on 29, and that's not even counting Altmaier dropbacks where he ended up running the football. So that is a horrifically low percentage.
The pressure, low. And I think Bullock got one of them. I know Wright hit him in the back on the one where he fumbled. I don't know if that counts. It was the other.
That was that counts.
Yeah. So that was like those were where they came from. Was from blitzing when that happened.
Yeah.
So I've got to reevaluate, Josh. Like that's what I pictured. I pictured this pass rush being a major strength of this team, and I think there was a little bit of we always kind of put this postscript on everything we said. Remember, it was UTEP. Remember, it was Colorado's offensive line. Well, it turned out those things mattered, right?
Yeah,
and we got a little bit of foreshadowing that against UNI. And now, and the thing is, like, in the middle of that game, I was like, man, this Illinois team is better than I thought. And they definitely played better than I thought they would. I don't know, sure, Josh, though. Like, I'm not ready to say, oh, yeah, they're going to go through and they're going to end up being a, 8-win team necessarily. We'll see about if that is true. But the bottom line, if you want to talk about it, everything that I'm really concerned about that I think is the hardest thing to fix goes back to the lines of scrimmage. Again, both sides of the ball. Lines of scrimmage again. Pass protection, not being able to run the ball, not being able to get a pass rush, not being able to stop the run.
Yeah, Pitt says missing 2 starters on the offensive line wasn't great. Bazooka being an idiot was a huge story of the game. Yeah, Jack, you want to talk about one of the big surprises of last night's postgame show was people being critical of Rule for not playing Mazzucca.
Oh,
and I'm like, wow, like coaches or fans always want coaches to like hold players accountable, except when it like comes in a loss. And it's like, hey, stop holding them accountable and get that guy out there on the field. He did stuff behind the scenes that they didn't like. And that's why he missed the last 2 games. It wouldn't surprise me, certainly, if he plays in the next game. And they're absolutely going to need him given the concerns now with the offensive line. Any other things that we need to hit on the defense before we start moving around? Because I know people want to talk about the offense, and I know they want to talk about specialty. Are we missing anything else on the defense? Certainly Tommy Hill. Planner sucks. I don't know if you've ever had plantar fasciitis. That's a horrible injury. So we'll see because that's what's going on with him. So we'll see what happens next with Tommy Hill.
And
not having him out there was brutal.
And I think Wright had some ups and downs coming in for him. Like I thought there was some good and some bad with Sierra Wright, but yeah. Bigger thing on the defense, Josh, is I just think there were a lot of coverage busts out there too. Like I think there were 2 different things that were happening. I just think there were plays. Illinois had enough time that they were able to get. I think they had well-designed plays, but I think especially when they got well inside the red zone, man, they knew they could bust coverage on that Nebraska defense, right? They would have you had safeties just chasing those tight ends in end zones desperately. You had Gifford trying to get across the entire field. You had Hartzog trying to get across the entire field to a tight end he had no shot at getting at. Even when they had the big man touchdown too, right? Gifford is sprinting to try and get over to him. I don't know. I don't know the details of exactly why it was wrong, but the first touchdown was absolutely a coverage bust as well. So, Yeah, the
basically every touchdown was that they scored. The first one, the last one, and I feel like there's another one. The offensive lineman scores. That's 3. They scored 21 points. You know,
right. Yeah, the coverage, Josh. The concern, we had concern about the defensive backfield too. And again, you lose Tommy Hill. That obviously
it changes everything.
Is a big problem. But the defensive backfield was not. They just weren't. They weren't making it. They weren't making it difficult, right? They just weren't making it real difficult. How many throws did Raiola have to throw where the Illinois guy was just draped on the Nebraska player?
Again, he had to make crazy NFL type throws, and Altmaier got to make easy throws all night long.
And they were playing man on him, and they were doing. I mean, credit those Illinois defensive backs. I mean, they're the ones that are the real deal. I think out of the whole thing, I don't doubt those guys, but Nebraska, and we can say a lot of good things about Banks and Neora, the way they played, but boy, there were a lot of times where there just wasn't much separation with that man coverage, even when it was single coverage too.
Yeah. So I think that's defense. I will say this, like one final thought on the defense before we move on, is if this is now who they are, it most certainly causes us to reevaluate the entire season. I think that we all had in our heads a baseline level of play. Jack, I said this on the postgame last night. This is the most disappointed that I have been in that defense so far. This is game 16. Save me on the Colorado game last year. The offense let them down, and I think that, the floodgates open. Michigan won the national championship. I'm not going to be like super upset by that one. This is easily the most disappointed that I have looked at the defense because of all of the things we talked about during the rule era. Because, and it's not like I did expect them to be the number 1 defense and they're only the number 15. Like I just thought that they could be a top 20-ish unit. And last night shows that maybe that's not the case, I guess. I mean, certainly if they can't generate that pass rush and if they can't stop the run against Jack, a team, and this was why I like Nebraska all week long. Illinois has been poor running the football this year.
Illinois is not going to be a great. Yeah, this is why I said the thing. Like, I don't know how good they're going to end up to be. I don't think they're going to be a great running team, and that might give them issues against better defenses in the Big Ten.
Yeah,
I mean, we'll see. I could be wrong on that, but yeah, that was. I'm going to pull up the box score here because now
Jack, it's bad. Especially the fourth quarter. We were looking at some of those fourth quarter numbers. They were averaging over 5 yards a pop. They had 70-something yards rushing. Illinois did. It just, again, when the game was tight and plays needed to be made, that was when Illinois started running the ball at their absolute best.
Yeah, they got 4.4 yards rushing for the game, but Fagan ran 12 for 69 for 21 yards for 5.8. Yeah. And then they had Laurie in, and he had that long 21-yard one. He averaged 7.5 on 4 carries. McCray got 9 for 38 for 4.2. So they had all those guys over 4 yards per carry. So, and again, that's what I saw against Northern Iowa. I mean, that's what I saw against Northern Iowa too, and concerned me as well. So.
I want to talk. I don't know what you want to do next. I want to talk special teams real fast, because I have thought that it was like darkly comic that Nebraska named their documentary series Chasing 3, when I thought like there would be moments this season when they would literally be chasing 3 points and not be able to get it. And sure enough, and I guess we can use this as a way almost to talk about the decision making in that moment too. So here is my kind of overarching thought on that entire end of the drive. I thought that the play call on 3rd and 3 is fine because it worked. It should have worked. They should have scored a touchdown, right? Like, it's like when people got mad at the Terrence Nunn fumble, they should have ran the ball. The play worked.
Were people mad at that? Was there a lot of people about the 3rd and 3 call? Like I said, I haven't seen much reaction.
Yes. Oh, yeah. People do not like the 3rd and 3 call.
Run the Lindenmeyer pass.
Yes. Yeah. I'm sure that that'll show up in the chat. So I was totally fine with the play call. I'm also fine with the decision to kick. Now, this is going to sound a bit odd, but hear me out. So you need to learn if your kicker can make a field goal in this moment. It's 39 yards. It's 39 yards, right? You need to figure out if he can do it. Now you know he can't. And like, it's a really horrible way to learn that the guy can't make the field goal. But Nebraska now knows that they don't have a kicker who can do that in that moment. And so I think moving forward, they will coach in a different way in these types of situations. I will say, like, instead of coaching scared, I think that they can coach aggressively. They can coach aggressively, and by being aggressive, they can maybe do a run on 3rd and 3 and then set up a 4th and short. They can pass the ball on 3rd and 3 and then pass the ball again on 4th and 3. I think that this really changes a lot of things, and it sucks that it had to happen in a loss. But you can't not attempt a 39-yard field goal in that moment. And again, the 3rd and 3 call should have worked. Like, the guy was wide open. Dylan just picked the worst time to have the worst pass of his career so far, right?
It wasn't just the worst pass. He had somebody right in his face again. It was this. I mean, it was the same thing.
Yeah.
I mean, he had all kinds of pressure once again, if I recall.
Yeah. Brendan says if it worked, you give Illinois the ball with 3 minutes and 2 timeouts and a 2-minute warning. Yeah, but you're up by 7. Like, is that a like? Are we really going to be like you're only up by 7 with 2 minutes to go? Like,
I would have taken a 70-yard touchdown on the first play of that drive. I mean, all you just needed a touchdown, right? To and then put the pressure on Illinois being behind instead of tied in that scenario. So yeah, all you need was to get 7 there, or at least 3, and you couldn't do that. Do we know was because I heard that Alvano was out. I assume he's just still dealing with the same injury. I mean, they've used him a little. Why is Hole kicking instead of Alvano? Do we know?
Yeah, he was on the whatchamacallit list before the game started. He was listed as doubtful or questionable or whatever it was. I don't know if this is a lingering thing from before the year or what it is. Man, I'm stunned. Like, Husker for MU, Brendan, it didn't work though. The box score says 24. Like, come on, bro. Are you really going to do this? The play was designed very, very well. Very, very well. I am totally okay with that play.
Yeah, I didn't. In the moment, I did not have that. The reaction that those guys did. I guess I haven't. Yeah. My first thought was, man, that was a great play design. I wish he had put it to have Linnemeyer. That
throwing to a third string tight end in high leverage situation is not ideal. Illinois threw to an offensive lineman for a touchdown.
And everybody thought it was a genius.
Come on. I think this is way too results-based sometimes.
I mean,
oh my gosh, come on.
I don't get that at all.
Yeah, Texas says the play works. We're all praising Sat. Exactly. You're saying, oh my gosh, they designed a play for their third-string tight end?
You're killing Nebraska. I'm killing Nebraska's defense because they did that. They had that done to them multiple times. Yeah, and the throw was there, but it was because he had time to do it.
The other side is coaching great because they're designing these wonderful plays that get the ball to weird players and situations, and then get mad when Nebraska does the same thing and misses it by a foot.
He bamboozled the defensive coverage again. 100%. I mean, and that's what they did to Nebraska. So no, I can't and listen, I would have had no confidence in the run there anyway. I know Dowdell, I think, had a couple of carries there, but I had no confidence in the run. And Illinois obviously was stocking up for the run.
Yeah.
Like, they probably
do you remember that 3rd and 1 that Nebraska had where I think it was Dowdell kind of jumped into the line and he barely got it.
Yes.
It was I think it was at the beginning of the 4th quarter, maybe. Or maybe it was in the 3rd. I don't know. I'm just trying to remember what direction they were going, but it was like, oh my gosh, they struggled at getting push all night long. I would not have trusted them to be able to pick up 3 yards on 3rd and 3.
Who knows, Josh? I mean, we know that he might have went up with 2 play calls. Dylan might have made that call at the line.
Yeah, sure.
On the front. He might have had a run and a pass, and he took a look at the coverage, correctly so, again, because he had a wide ass open. Listen, you want a play call I freaked out about? It was the double reverse whammo Heinrich Harburg play.
I still haven't seen this play. This is the one play that I haven't seen. I didn't really, because John and I were talking on Overreaction and said something like, and Harburg didn't play tonight. And Padilla DMs me and it's like, he did play. And we're like, wait, what are you talking about? I don't remember this play. And it was like, yeah, he was involved on this. And I'm like, what? What happened?
Oh my God.
And then sure enough, I find out that
you want to be results based. That one, now I'll take the opposite side on that, results based. That one, I guess, worked. They completed the pass.
Yeah, they got a first down, right?
I cannot believe they ran that play. All of the things that could have gone wrong with the turnover on that play. I think Harburg was in on a couple other ones too, but nonetheless, it was basically he was in at running back, if I recall. They throw a lateral to him. Raiola goes back. He throws a lateral back to Raiola, and Raiola throws it for a 9-yard pass to Banks.
I can't wait to see this.
They must have had a deep option. It was 11 yards, I think it was, but it was just kind of not that remarkable of a pass. And Banks was even kind of covered on the play. It wasn't like he was wide ass open. I'm assuming they had Barney or Lloyd wide ass. The hope was wide ass open downfield, but it took so long to develop in the backfield, and Illinois was getting pressure. So it was just really high risk. Whatever. It worked. But honestly, if you want 2 play calls that just in theory results be damned, in theory that were not good at the time, I would definitely get rid of that one before I'd get, the tight end play they've been setting up all night that they tried to use.
Yeah, a lot of debate right now about should we complain about the offense, not complain about the offense. I think bitching about the offense today is a fool's errand.
I generally agree.
And Brennan keeps saying 24
I'm worried about
points
pass pro, Josh.
Yeah, 24 points won't beat ranked teams. Yeah, but neither will giving up 5 yards per carry to a rush offense that was averaging like 4 points something going into the game.
Okay. If you want to talk about the offense, my concerns are pass protection and being able to run the ball. It's really not. I mean, look, I don't love some of the play calling, blah, 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 but those are by far the structural problems right now. It's the offensive, it's injuries on the offensive line. It's ability when Illinois sent 4 on first down in overtime. My goodness sakes, 3 twists around, and it was maybe the best offensive lineman that was out there at the time that got killed was Evans. He twisted and he went right by Evans and right up in Dylan's face. Dylan runs backwards. Next play, they got the 2 guys. They sent 5 instead of 4 on that one. So it was 1-on-1, man on man. And Benhart and Lutovsky collapsed down there. And Gatula let the guy eventually get by him. But Dylan held it forever on that one. That one was a little bit on Dylan, I think, too. But it's that pass pressure. And Jen, Josh, they still don't have. And I don't know if it's, maybe time to work Emmett Johnson in a little more. They're going to have to have a running. They're gonna have to get a running back in there that's gonna be able to create a little bit on his own. I mean, you're gonna have to. You got to get some chunk plays running the ball, and you got to get. I mean, what was the longest run last night?
14, I think.
Dante had a 14-yarder.
Yeah,
and Nair had must have been a reverse for 13.
Yeah, see, I feel like that's not to say it's pretend, but it's pretend. When a wide receiver has a rush for 13 yards, that's pretend rushing yards. That's like it's designed in a different way. Dante Dowdell's longest carry was 14. Ramir had 4 for 17, and Emmett Johnson 0 carries. Obviously, how I have felt about Gabe Ervin, they feel about Gabe Ervin, but I'm stunned.
To your point, I am not nearly as structurally worried about the offense or the play calling as I am the defense. The defense, my biggest concern by far coming out of that game and critique coming out of that game is the way the defense played. I'm most surprised by the way the defense played. I'm most worried about the defense going forward. And I'm worried, bottom line, that it was fool's gold to start the season. Iron pyrite to start the season. That's what I'm worried about.
Yeah.
I expected some of the offensive stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. If anything, I would say that the offense is a little ahead of where I thought that they would be at this moment in time. Dylan makes incredible throws multiple times a game. The issue is that they're kind of asking him to make those really, really great throws, and he's having to avoid this pass rush. And by the time that it got into overtime and he has the ball and that defensive line is just coming up the gut and just ripping him to shreds, it's like, what do you do in those types of moments? What do you do in those types of moments? The running game, again, not to say it one more time, but just really odd that Emmett Johnson didn't get any carries. Disappointing. I think that he's had some really nice pop. I think that Dowdell, for as physical as he is, I think sometimes he searches out contact a little too much. If not, maybe he just has bad vision. It's one of the two, but the guy loves running into people rather than maybe, seeing the hole a little bit better and finding a way to scoot through it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, but you and I, wow, we are remarkably on the same page. We haven't talked before this at all.
Yeah.
I didn't know what you were going to come with. And I know you got people who disagree in the chat, and that's great. But you and I think are remarkably on the same page after this game. I'm worried if the defense isn't going to be able, because they're going to, I know it's kind of the thing right now to talk about how good Illinois and what a good coach Bielema is. And they're going to get 8 guys. It's gonna be tough.
See, Jack, I would say this. Don't do this, Jack. You always do that. You always want to lessen the opponent. I'm
saying it's gonna be tougher. I'm just saying it's gonna be. There are gonna be offenses.
Sure,
there are gonna be offenses that are gonna be a lot bigger.
More concerned about Nebraska then. That's the thing. If you're right about Illinois, then that's a concern about Nebraska.
Sorry. I guess the way I was saying it is that if they had problems like this against Illinois' offense, they got without making changes, that's going to crop up against a lot of the offenses that they face. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Right. That's what I'm saying. In the next, in the next few weeks.
Definitely.
Before Ohio State. So
yes, how does this change now how things are viewed moving forward? So 3 games, Purdue this weekend, Rutgers, and an off week, and then it's Indiana. God's gift to the world, the Indiana Hoosiers of 2024, who certainly, say what you want about the Hoosiers and Signetti and all that stuff. We've had some fun with it this week. his ability to scheme guys open is certainly noticeable when you watch them on television. Certainly noticeable for me. And so like that game, it's already been like tougher. Today, you wake up and you say, yikes. That looks a lot tougher. Ben says I expect to beat Purdue. Yeah, I'm certainly there as well. How do they bounce back? It's a good thing, I guess, that they have that extra day. That'll be good. And then there's that Rutgers game in between both of those. How are you viewing things now moving forward as the month of September has just one game left?
I mean, I'm interested to see Rutgers and Purdue, and not as much Indiana, but they do today, to be honest. Like just to kind of see a little bit more who they are in terms of what Nebraska is going to be up against. But yeah, I guess Josh, if there's any kind of this felt like one of those. It felt like it belonged in that same group of those last 4 games last year, didn't it?
Yeah.
Like a game where the way that it was lost and the type of opponent that it was, and one where you went in thinking Nebraska probably was going to win. And I guess, the good news is there's a lot of season left here at this point. I think you got a chance to go up against Purdue. Like Purdue may, who knows? Like, yeah, I'm not going to disparage opponents right now. I don't, that doesn't, you can't do that after what Nebraska did last night, what Illinois did very successfully to them last night, and outplayed them and outcoached them and everything like that. But I don't know, going forward, Josh, you kind of wonder, like, okay, are we going to be in some shootouts here over the course in some of these games? Like Purdue, Indiana. I mean, are we talking, 49-38 type wins, those sorts of things in some of those games? Is it to that point? I don't know for sure. But they've got to, again, the deepest concern. I think you can work on the schematic things, right? I think you can do some of the schematic things, but to get to be strong up on the offensive line, to be able to run the ball, to be able to get a pass rush, I don't know if you can build that back in or not. They're going to have to. They're going to.
Yeah, and they're going to. And if they can't, what does that mean? It means that they're putting more on the shoulders of Raiola, right? Like, and that's the thing. That, to go back to something I mentioned a little bit earlier, look at Altmaier's throws. Look how easy those throws were. He got to have easy throws all night long. And I don't think that should be underestimated, like whether it's just mentally not having to overthink or to have to process 1,000 things on a play before, like, the Raiola touchdown, the one at the end of the half was ridiculous, but it's like that takes a lot of mental energy, right? To be able to make that play. Altmaier never had to do that. And so like that is something to wonder about moving forward. And if the defense doesn't respect Nebraska's run game to that degree, I mean, Nebraska can't drop the guy back 40 to 50 times, and throw the ball around that much. They can't do that.
You got to play complementary football then again. Yeah, it's a good point, Josh, because Raiola and Altmaier ended up having kind of similar nights statistically, both very good nights. They both looked great. Dillon's was about 10 times harder to do than Altmaier's was, right? Because Altmaier had time, he had open receivers throughout the course of the night. And he obviously, I don't want to take anything away from him. He also was, mobile when he needed to be, had some good runs. He had a great game. But it just, watching it, the level of difficulty looked completely different for the two of them because of the pressure that they were facing and the coverage they were facing.
Yeah, exactly. And so like that's the thing that I wonder about. Like obviously there are a million Mahomes comparisons. So let me make another one. Like when he was at Tech, he had to throw the ball that much, and he had to be a risk taker, and he had to go down the field. He had to do all these things that you wouldn't want your quarterback to have to do, but he did. And why did he have to do that? Because the team was on his shoulders. And he had to do that every single game in, game out. And so you wonder if that is now how this season starts changing, where every week we're like, wow, this guy is just a marvelous talent. And then there's always this but he made that mistake late in the game, but the defense wasn't good enough, but special teams was a tire fire. I feel like that's how the conversation is going to be now moving forward.
Yeah. NU1 puts his predictions for the rest of the season up. He says Purdue win, Rutgers, I don't know, Indiana loss, Ohio State loss, UCLA win, USC loss, Wisconsin win, Iowa win. Okay, I'll take that. 4 wins from so that would be what? 7?
It's either 8-4 or 7-5.
7, and then the one's still there. Yeah, I mean, Josh, like you want to try and look it. again, there are certainly situations where the problems from one game do not all travel to the next game. So if Nebraska can get some things right and they could get these next 3, Josh, they end up exactly where I thought they would be at this point going into Ohio State. But they got to do that, right?
Yeah.
They got to do that. So I guess that's one way of saying, and obviously I don't think, well, some people are saying this, all is not lost. Obviously, there are some people completely jumping off the cliff, and I'm genuinely concerned about the things I'm genuinely concerned about. But it's early in the season, right? It's a schedule that is still manageable, right? They're still, it could be a hell of a lot worse with what's coming up in the schedule, and they got a chance.
So let's say, let's
build
say
some
this:
momentum.
they catch the ball in the end zone on that 3rd and 3. They hold on, they win the game. They're 4-0. Like all of the discussions outside of, I guess, the field goal miss are still very, very valid.
True. Isn't that crazy about football?
But there's a 0 instead of a 1, and everyone's like, well, they were able to battle through. They were able to get things done. And so
the game itself, you change 6 inches in the game, and we are having a completely different conversation.
Yeah. DW says all is not lost. So I definitely went from 9-3 to 7-5. Yeah, 7-5 certainly feels like the number. I never thought that they would go 7-0. I was starting to talk myself into it in recent days. The issue for me is like, okay, they lost a game that I didn't think they would lose. Can they now pick up another one? Can they be 6-1 going into Ohio State? Or are they going to be 5-2? Or are they going to be, wow, Jordan dropped from 7-5 to 5-7. Sheesh. Yeah. Ben, we are not going to explore, but what if Raiola leaves? Stop posting that. My God, dude. That is someone you need to settle down, Ben.
I'm not going to
settle down. Matt says, let's talk special teams. Yeah, Jack, we've talked kicking. We've talked the field goal. We've not talked about coverage. My God. The coverage on kickoffs. The coverage. Hey, here's a play that we haven't mentioned but one single time today. How about the punt where Buschini, no hang time, launches it down to the 6-yard line, though, and then they return it basically to midfield. Yeah. Basically to midfield.
It felt like he outkicked the coverage on that one, man.
Yeah. Oh, it was obvious in person.
He went off his foot, and I was like, nice, let's go,
Yeah, and then it just dropped way too fast.
Yeah. And the cover, and the kickoffs, too. There were a few that were all right. Look, listen, honestly, Josh, those are all some issues. Doesn't even compare to my level of concern about the field goal kicking game. I mean, that's so far and away my biggest concern right now. And there may not be an answer all year. Like, again, that's not one of those things, Josh, that you can scheme up, right? You either have a kicker on the team who can make a 40-yard field goal, or you don't, and you can't get one. That doesn't shit. Like, there's nothing. That is by far the huge issue. And, I don't know, like, what do you say about that? I mean, it's got to be frustrating as a coaching staff, but God, how can they not have someone on the roster at this point that can kick a field goal? What is going on with Alvano at this point? What? I still didn't get an answer. Like, is he injured? What, does anyone know? Has anyone heard on what's going on?
He was hurt before the season. I don't think that he was. Yeah, I know. I don't know if he was ever fully back, or is this a benching in a nicer way?
I mean, we have this freshman that came in from what, New Jersey or New York. I suppose you give him a try. Obviously, he hasn't shown it in practice. Hole must have looked better than him in practice, but all of them are not at the level. And this is at a point, Josh, when I am watching football, college football, and I am seeing kickers that are freaking dead eye everywhere. It feels like kickers kicking field goals are better than they've ever been.
Certainly they are in the NFL. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
In the NFL. Yeah. So, I mean, it's hard for me to get super deep into anything in the return game or anything else. Like, I think Buschini nailed that one. I'm not sure it's imperfect, but the impact it's going to have overall repeatedly than not having the ability to get a field goal in games. You play a game completely different because of that, Josh.
Yeah, you do.
Like you said, that last drive, if you're not going to kick a field goal, you play the entire drive differently because of it.
Yeah, exactly. I always get like really tired when people are like, man, back in 96 and 95 and 94, like they always had good running backs. Why can't they do that again? It's like, okay, well, they had All-Americans and they were a national championship winning program. Like, settle down. But I do not think that it is out of pocket to say, how can they not have a good kicker in like a decade? Like, this is now, who's the last good kicker? Drew Brown?
Drew Brown,
like,
maybe.
Last kicker that you truly believed in when he lined up for field goals. I feel like for me, it's Drew Brown. Unless
God,
I'm
that was over
forgetting
a
somebody.
decade ago. Yeah, who
Yeah.
else was there?
Because the Frost era was a tire fire, especially the 2019 season. That was horrible when they were like pulling kids off of the street. Hey, can you come and try this 20-yard field goal for us? And they weren't very good. This is like, see, it's funny because the special teams problems are twofold. There is the scheme and like the Foley of it all, and I'm happy to discuss that too. And then there is like the individual players need to be better. Like this is one of those things. As someone who doesn't really play golf anymore, mainly because it's so frustrating and I mentally struggle mightily if things go against me, that I think the comparisons are very apt. If you start to lose it as a kicker, it is almost game over. Whatever it is, 12 says Culp won kicker of the year. He did win kicker of the year. God, that is. But then he sucked.
Good.
Didn't he suck though? After that, didn't he win that? And then he was horrible the next year. Am I remembering that right?
I don't remember.
Okay. I think that was the case. Somebody help me out if I'm wrong. Somebody in the chat hit us with some fire emojis.
Culp was a guy. Sorry, Conical. And he got his truck stolen when he was here too. So
that doesn't matter to me in this discussion. No offense, Connor. I hope you got your truck back.
I just wanted I want to give him a little sympathy since you left him out.
There we go. But like that's the problem. Is special teams issues are like this big, broad, like how can they fix it? And then there's also the kicker sucks or the punter messed up. Like that goes beyond just, special teams design.
Yeah.
Not great.
Yep. Nope. I completely agree. And I mean, Culp did make the field goal. Like he made, what was it? 21. It was only 21 yards, right? The one that he made. Yeah. He was 3 for 3 in extra points. Like he was the best. I don't doubt that he was the best they had for sure at that moment. But again, it's a whole different deal, to have essentially a game winning, what was the length on that? 40 something?
39.
39.
Got to make that, Jack.
And he pulled it just a little bit.
Got to make 39-yard field goals.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. But I don't know, he didn't come. They thought they were going to use him for a kickoff. Like he was at Southwest. He was a soccer player and a football player. Southwest. He went to Iowa Western, right? He went to kick there. Like it's not like these guys aren't coming to become college. They aren't training there, becoming. Sometimes I feel like you're pulling up guys who don't even expect to be kicking field goals. Like that's what he trained to do. He went to Iowa Western to do that, right? This is the moment he got the chance that he was wanting to definitely get. And, maybe he's got a shot to get better at this point. But at that point, it just missed it. And it's so the reason it's even more frustrating, Josh, is because it feels like every freaking time for multiple years when the other team has got that field goal that they've got to meet to beat Nebraska, it is just free. Not only is made, but it splits the damn upright right in half. Whether it's Iowa or Maryland or pick Minnesota, no matter what, you just feel like the kicker on the other team is always going to be putting it right through. And in this situation, Nebraska got a chance to do that. And then imagine he makes that, and then that crowd and the defense and that situation. I guess credit the defense did stop them on that last drive. I didn't think they were going to even do that. But how about what I know
that they said that you're right, that the game didn't end in regulation. I was pretty stunned.
But I was confused. I want to see what you think about this. I did not like what Nebraska was doing with the time management on that last drive. So they were taking timeouts, like they were stopping the clock. They declined the runoff. I don't know if you even saw this. Like there was a penalty where Nebraska could have had a runoff because of it, because there was an offensive penalty. They declined the runoff. And I'm like, what are you doing? What? Like they were playing as if they were going to have another possession to score. I'm curious what the chat thinks about this. I thought they were doing the exact wrong thing.
Didn't the punt then go down to like the 10 or whatever? And so at that point, there's just
then they downed it.
Even trying.
Then they downed it. Like they were leaving. They were leaving time on the. They were trying to leave some time on the clock, but I was like, man, I think the clock is in your favor here.
Jordan says they didn't think they'd get a stop on D. Wanted to save time. Yeah, and like I didn't think they were either. And then suddenly the drive ended very, very quickly for Illinois. Because what did they pick up? 1 or 2 first downs on that drive?
Yeah, but with the amount of time in Illinois having 2 timeouts, that doesn't make sense. Like, I guess that's what they were doing, but I don't think that's. Boy, I would have been trying to get time off the clock for Illinois and
yeah, you wanted to get to you personally wanted to get to overtime. You didn't want to give them, But yeah, I mean, a lot of people are pointing out like the defense wasn't getting stops at that point. And so I think that's how they were coaching. And then suddenly the defense got to stop.
But with Illinois with 2 timeouts in their pocket, I get what they're saying, but you've got to understand what Illinois was going to be able to do to bleed that clock to exactly where they wanted it. They had control of the clock no matter what. I mean, if your theory is, well, the defense isn't stopping them, then Illinois is going to score, but they're going to score, by the way, with no time left on the clock. They're going to be able, it's not like Burt can't control the clock too in the same situation. Like he was going to milk the clock as much as he could. Nebraska was running out of timeouts, Josh. Like they weren't going to be able to use it anymore. I think they got down to either 1 or 0. It was stupid. I don't get.
Well, Jack, just to play devil's advocate, if you're right, like they're going to be able to run down the clock anyway. Well, you get the ball with 26 seconds left. What if you were able to break a punt return? Like you have like those precious seconds back because you decided to call timeouts.
To me, in weighing the possibilities, Wisconsin having more opportunities. Illinois, thank you for having more. I was going back into Bielema's previous coaching gigs. Illinois having more opportunities at that. Like I thought the clock was the defense's friend at that point. Like I was worried, of course, that Illinois was going to go down there and score. But I thought the clock was the defense's friend in that situation.
Yeah.
Especially where they...
I'm fine with the decline runoff. We didn't think we could stop them, and we've been good in 2-minute situations.
Yeah, but they weren't getting it in 2 minutes. They were going to get it with 8 seconds.
Got a half. They got a half minute.
They were never going to get the ball with 2 minutes.
Unless they just thought like they're just like saying, "Hey, maybe we can break through on one of these plays, and set up a shorter field." And then obviously that didn't happen. They downed the ball inside the 10.
No matter what, they were going to get the ball with like best 20 seconds and no timeouts, and on the other side of the field. So
yeah,
and to me that was not nearly as worth as putting more pressure on Illinois. Running out of time to get the game-winning field goal, but whatever, it doesn't matter. I didn't think it was maybe you guys did. So credit.
But given all the timeouts that Illinois had, I just I don't know, 6 of one, half dozen of the other. And if you give yourself a chance to maybe move down the field, you give yourself
maybe
I guess like that is not. Here's the other thing. Yeah, we haven't talked about. Speaking of coaching in-game management, we have not talked about the challenge, which ultimately doesn't cost Nebraska anything because. If anything, they would have used an extra timeout in the situation that you're talking about that you wouldn't have enjoyed. Yeah. But wow, what a curious challenge for Nebraska. And you thought it was a good challenge. I did, right?
I did. I on the replay immediately, and they must have seen the same thing I did, the angle that I did, because right away I said he's out 8 yards back for sure, or 5 yards back, whatever. But
was it really worth 4 yards
in that situation? Well, if you don't lose a timeout, if you think you're right, yeah, it's worth it, Josh, because you win the challenge and you don't lose a timeout.
Man, yeah. So here's my thought, and maybe this is too pessimistic. They're going to score anyway. Who gives a shit about 4 yards? Like that was how I was thinking in the moment. Like maybe. You don't need those 4 yards.
I don't know. I thought they would be beneficial, but again, if you're right on the challenge, you don't lose it. There's no cost to doing it if you're sure you're right on it. Which again, I saw that angle and I was sure he stepped out. I saw the first one. I was sure he stepped out. They moved it, and I was like, okay, I was totally wrong. The critique, Josh, is that they should be able to see that other angle. Make sure they see that other angle before they decide.
Yeah, and that it was only over 4 yards. Like that's the part where it's like, it's not. This wasn't. This was no. I know. I'm just saying. Like
no, I'm responding to the chat. Everyone's making the same argument you are, and I'm trying to explain to them. There's no risk if you're sure you're right.
If you're sure you're right. It is a free 4 yards. I do wonder.
One replay, I was sure they were.
Yeah,
right.
If it sets up like 4th and goal from the 3 versus 4th and goal from the 7, then I think that's a risk you have to take. It's funny because live up in the booth, we all thought the same thing too. We're like, oh, they're gonna win this challenge, and then they show the first replay, and it's like, oh wow, that was a horrible challenge. Like he's obviously in bounds.
Is it taking a bigger view?
Stadium, for the record, in the stadium. Like live, it looked like he was out, and the first replay, I think he looked like he was out, and then the second replay showed up, and it was like never game over.
That was my exact reaction too. Reaction, but isn't it interesting now? Like I was critical of the coaching staff, everybody defend them on one thing, and then I was defending them on one thing, and everyone else was critical of them on another thing. So I guess it's hard to be a coach.
Yeah, it was that kind of night. Have we missed anything? Is there anything from this game in particular that we have not discussed just yet? I mean, we have mentioned him in passing, but I mean, Dylan Raiola is just a good God, man. What a player.
We finally got to see what Banks brings to the table.
He was, dude, they let him eat. There was that drive. He had 3 or 4 catches.
Like, I'm still excited. I'm still excited if they can figure out protection, what Nair, Banks, and Dylan can do together. I mean, I think I think those two guys, they are really good. They're at a different level. And so I'm still excited about them. It would have been nice, I kept expecting Barney to maybe have something go big for him, and he never did. That was a little bit of a disappointment, I guess, on the offense when we talk about the weapons. They got Fedonian in a couple of nice spots. I think he just had a couple of catches, but they were both pretty big ones as well. And then, on the running back thing, yeah, I guess I'd maybe like to see Emmett a little more. I don't know if it's going to be any better if the holes aren't there, but that was the only other thing. But let's talk positives. I mean, Josh, still Dylan Raiola is still better than even better through 4 games with us than I ever dreamed he would be.
Yeah.
Like I tweeted this last night. I was excited about his ceiling at some point. Didn't know when that was. I would have, and maybe this is just me controlling my own optimism, but through 4 games, I would have never expected that he would be this good.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have. He's everything. He has been the real deal, as expected, as hyped, pretty much in everything. And good gracious, don't spoil this opportunity. Get him some protection. Figure out how to protection and really let him cook back there. They got Josh, they do have the quarterback and the receivers to cook on this offense, right?
Yeah.
They do. They haven't in the past. They do. But you got to have some kind of a functional running game that defenses are going to be concerned about, right? And you got to have time to throw the ball.
Yeah. Somebody did mention something that we had not hit on, and that's penalties.
Oh, yes.
4 penalties, Jack,
Yes.
of the personal foul
Including
variety. One only went for 14, so overall it's 4 for 59. There's also the missed face mask. And I know that, it's not like the refs were perfect on the other side, but
no, they weren't.
Nebraska did the punching was the visual of that on the replay was one of the funniest things of the night, where it's like all these players, and then in the middle you see this guy, and I know he's punching for the ball. I understand. Yes. The play was over. You can't.
I know it was stupid. It was stupid, but it wasn't dirty. I guess is the way I would describe it.
Yeah. The Hartzog, I think it was the last of the personal foul penalties, the Hartzog face mask. That was the one where I was so mad because the player was down. Sumanji, the last face mask penalty might have been the play was over essentially, and he grabs the face and he did it so half-assed too. And it's like, bro, what are you doing? There's no need for this. Yeah. Those penalties, absolutely brutal.
Well, first play of overtime, right? Gatula jumped on the first play of overtime. It was 1st and 15.
Oh, right? Yeah. Yes. Yeah. They get a 5-yard penalty. It's like, oh, here we go again.
As soon as that happens, you're like, geez. Man, again. And again, Gatula goes in there not expecting to play. Really his first super big in action, redshirt freshman last year. And the injuries hurt. The injuries hurt last night for sure. And Mizuka not being in there. Corcoran was actually, it sucks because Corcoran was actually playing well, and that sounds like it's serious. So
the way in which Rule talked about it last night, it sounds like that's not very good.
Yep.
Yeah, that was rough. That was rough.
No, the penalties were bad. There were some calls I was really annoyed with too, but I'm not going to harp on that because people get mad.
I think some people like it when you do it. I just, I'm not a ref guy.
I can't even remember now, but I was super.
You did
annoyed.
tweet holding a few times.
There was a little.
By the way, Jack, it was wild being in the stadium and up in the press box. So I have actual Wi-Fi and watching the game live, and you're 2 plays behind. It was wild how far behind you were.
I had to get off. So I had to get off the Discord because I was getting it so spoiled. I'm not sure if my TV if it at some point got further behind. I should fast forward during the
You're on YouTube, right? You're on YouTube TV?
Yeah, I'm on YouTube TV.
Okay, so I had that open on my laptop just to watch replays. It was 2 or 3 plays behind. It was insane.
Oh, so it's just behind. YouTube TV.
Yeah, because John, when we left, we were watching on the Fox Sports app as we were walking to our spot for the postgame show, and the Fox Sports app was only 1 play behind. So the play would happen, and we would hear the reaction, and then we would watch the play over and over and over and over and over.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. Yeah, I had to get out of the Discord chat because I got one of Illinois' touchdowns completely spoiled for me. And I was like, I'm sorry, guys. I got to get out of here. I'm in a bad mood anyway. I'll come back later.
Yeah.
But the Discord was on fire last night. It's a good place to have people to watch the games with. So, join up with us next time. And
Yeah,
watch the game with friends.
patreon.com/i80 club.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially if you don't have slow YouTube TV like I do. Oh, man, Josh, this was going to be such a freaking fun day.
It was
such a freaking fun day going into that Purdue game. And now everyone is reevaluating everything that they think and probably overreacting. Let's be honest. It always is a little bit of probable overreaction with some of these things. But yeah, I mean, you got it. I mean, listen, if you want the kind of excitement that we had, you want to recapture that, you got to go 3-0 now. Okay. In terms of the real true excitement about this being a huge step instead of just the next step up the ladder, more than a bowl game, right?
Yeah.
I mean, goodness sakes, Josh, if they would somehow drop now that I'm trying to preach being positive, I'm thinking about what scenario that it gets to the point where they're starting to worry about a bowl game again. You're not going to get there, right? That's not
here's the worst case.
Is it?
Here's the worst case, Jack. So instead of going 3-0, they go 2-1, and they enter Ohio State and they're 5-2, and they get the break speed off of them and they're 5-3. And even though it's UCLA after that, everyone is just like pucker. That's what you don't want. Or another injury or two that really kind of changes the game in a negative capacity.
Of course.
That said, I feel like the most likely is that they enter the UCLA game 5-3. If I were to bet on most likely records,
so 1-2 now. So you would say 1-2 and then lose. So 2-2 going forward.
2-2. They win. They lose to Ohio State and then they lose one of these other games. If anything, Jack, would it surprise you if they won the next two and then they lost to Indiana and lost to Ohio State and suddenly they're on a 2-game losing streak?
Well, I was just going to say, let me put this out there. If you're a fan, would you take 2-1 in the next 3 if I offered it to you right now?
Well, I would hope that everyone who has been like super pessimistic over the last 12 hours would. I think the answer is yes.
Given the tone, I'm going to guess everybody says yes.
If everyone thinks they're a tire fire right now, and I'm like, yeah, they'll go 2-1, and you're like, no, they should go 3-0, then I'd say, well, then why are you being so critical about everything? They're exactly who you thought they were.
Everybody's saying yes. The whole chat is saying yes. They would take 2-1.
Good.
I would not. I would not take 2-1.
Wow, personally. Really?
No, I mean, no. I'd roll my dice.
So I'd say that
I'm a gambler. I'm a gambler, man. What do you expect?
Yeah.
I just put 85 cents down on a flip parlay, Josh. Yeah, I like to gamble. Yeah, that'll probably do. Weird. Okay.
This is one of your weirdest bets. Is your 10-cent bets.
Go back to the damn riverboat, Jack. We can't take a risky guy like you around here.
DW, I don't think they're tire fire, but 2-1 is a decent result in the next 3. D'Lo, after what we saw last night and the injuries, 2-1 would be amazing.
Ask me again after. Amazing. How about this, Josh? Ask me again after I see those 3 teams play today.
Okay. I'm trying to remember who they're all playing.
Rutgers is at Virginia Tech. Purdue is at Oregon.
What an interesting game.
Rutgers is at Virginia Tech. Purdue is at Oregon State, and Indiana's going to kill Charlotte. So we won't know. Indiana doesn't change, but I still don't know. I have no idea what Rutgers is. I have legit no idea. I don't think anybody does. People are still kind of going off the vibes from the summer with them. So I'm not sure. And again, maybe Illinois shows up to be, again, a really underestimated team this season. And the way that they play, as good as it looked, is really who they are over the course of this year. I just didn't think that really
right? That's what you're hoping for.
Yeah, for sure. But I didn't think that really shone through in the first 3 games they played. Kansas doesn't turn it over in that game.
Yeah, let me use that then against what you just said. If you think that about Illinois, then why are you not signing on the dotted line for 2-1? If you're saying I don't know if that good.
I said maybe. Well, what I just said now is maybe they are. I hope they are.
But then you said, but I don't know if they are.
Yeah, I don't. I'm going on that game against Kansas, which they won, Josh, but I don't know if you watched it, but did you watch the end of that Kansas game?
That's why I thought Nebraska was going to win last night. I thought that win wasn't that good.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I'm saying.
That's why I'm signing on the dotted line for 2-1 though.
Is that why
I view that and I say, I don't think Illinois is going to be this world beater this year. And so
I still
not
don't
a world beater. They went into Lincoln, Nebraska as a touchdown and a half favorite or underdog rather, and they won. And they really played well.
2 things can be true. I thought they looked awesome last night and played really well, and I was impressed with them last night. Coming into the game, I hadn't seen that from them. So
for sure,
we'll see.
We will maybe this is a team finding itself at the perfect time.
Yeah, you're right, Josh. You're right. I should be a little less But again, I'm a gambling man. Okay.
Yes,
Gambling
yes,
man.
you are. You're 85-cent bets. You're 85
Listen,
cent
some
bets.
some people make a lot of money.
Yeah.
We can throw it around.
You make me feel like I am like betting the house with my $10 bets because people are like, oh, you just bet $10 on games,
Josh,
and then Jack's like, I do 85 cents on this weird website called Spliff.
Not only are they're not bets. It's not my. There's no losing money in it.
So
they give me another $1 every day.
This is so odd. So weird.
It's great.
No, it's not.
Great. It's a great way to.
You have Spotify and Sirius XM, but you do 85-cent spliffs.
Josh, it's like drinking non-alcoholic beer, is what it is. That's what it's like.
I have some in the fridge.
No risk. Yeah,
I thought about having some this morning, but I was like, A, that's a weird look. It'd also be like, I don't want the taste of non-alcoholic beer at 9:30 a.m. So that's why I'm drinking coffee.
I'm disappointed I didn't bring another beverage. I canned both of these here.
Oh man,
I didn't even shotgun anything. So
yeah. Oh Lord.
God. Hey, all the new people watching us in the club, being members, people who became members in the last year. This is what the club used to be all the time.
It was. This was the club every single week, except I was. Where things are different now is that I do believe in things, and so I am much more apt to give them grace and to say that the sky is not falling. Whereas if like they had a similar loss in year 5 under Scott Frost a few years ago, I'd have said, "See, you idiots, this is exactly what to expect." Though, and so like, okay, so as we're getting close to winding down, we'll do the Saturday flight in a few minutes.
Yeah,
I did ask myself that, Jack, is like I left and I drove home last night, and now I'm talking it out with you. This is another one of those losses. Or I guess let me ask, is this another one of those losses that seems like losses from the last few years? Because I would argue it wasn't. They made mistakes, but I did not feel like this was. Look, I know Matt Rule, the challenge was dumb. In the end, the timeouts late, certainly you had qualms with them. I don't really feel like this was this like coaching malpractice like we have seen around here. I think it's a combination of a lot of things. But this was more on one team. I mean, certainly I thought Illinois outcoached Nebraska, but they also outplayed Nebraska, and certainly their offense did whatever they wanted to against Nebraska's defense in the second half. So that's a long-winded way of asking, like, am I being inconsistent, I guess, in some of my criticisms of coaching in the program in general?
To answer your first question, does it feel like the previous years? My answer to that immediately is yes, just because of sort of the game flow, right? Comes down to the wire. Comes down to the wire. The bleep moment happens. Everyone can feel it. It's inevitable. It's this inevitable doom that comes to fruition, right? We've seen that movie a bazillion times. So to that degree, yeah, I thought it did. I don't know. Like, I go away again. My takeaway, though, was like yours on the game overall, right? It was just I was just surprised, first and foremost, that the defense got, hate this word, but out physicaled by them. So I'm talking in other people's language.
Oh, no, that is something you despise.
I hate that word, but I don't know. It's the language that you all use. So, but that's still my biggest takeaway is I was super bullish on Nebraska, because I thought the defense and the defensive line was going to cause havoc. I said it, Josh. I said it after the Colorado game. I said this defensive line is going to be a terror for anyone that doesn't have a very above average offensive line. And I was wrong, right? I was wrong, at least as it pertains to this last game, because they were not by any means a terror. It's the most pleasant terror I would have ever had. Yeah, if that was a terror.
Stumanji says, the overtime was entirely coaching malpractice. Nebraska wasn't ready on either side of the ball, not even close. And then he adds, how often have you seen it? Defense completely unprepared for the most predictable play call ever. Prepare for the moment. Hey, to go back, Jack, to some of the stuff that you talked about with the overtime, or the end of regulation, rather, and calling those timeouts. Fair points from Stumanji. Like, are they preparing for some wild, wacky way to end regulation, and then they go to overtime and they're like stunned and they get punched in the mouth? It was very predictable. Like, oh, hey, the team's going to hand it off. They've been doing that all fourth quarter. Like, you have to be ready in that moment.
It does shock me. It shocked me even against you and I a little bit, just how often there were wide open receivers.
Yeah.
Like wide open receivers. And so I don't know where the critique goes on that. Like, I think on the touchdowns, it was for various reasons, but it's hard to even know exactly how you apportion the blame for a situation like that between execution and what the coaching is. But what I do know from watching it is dang it, Altmaier has some freaking open guys in the middle. You know what it looked like, Josh, sometimes for those people who watch volleyball is when the setter will tip it and you have all the play and right in the middle.
Yes.
And everybody dives in the middle. That's what a bunch of their passes looked like.
Yeah.
Like you got that nice hole of the donut.
This guy would run there and just stand there and it's like, hey, here I am, wide open.
Yep.
Throw me the ball.
And just kind of sit down in that open area.
Yeah.
So I think my answer to the question that you're asking is still TBD. It really is. And I'm sure the true answer is both things are true to some degree. I just don't know how much at this point. But if the offensive line protects Dylan Raiola, I think they win that game. You know, like if he has the time to tear them apart.
Let's go back to last year for a moment. They lose the Michigan game, get the absolute shit kicked out of them.
Yep.
And they practice the next day ahead of, oddly enough, a Friday game versus the Fighting Illini. They come out and they have their best stretch of the season. Did it look pretty? No. But they went 3-0. They responded well. I know they ended up losing their last 4, but they did respond to that particular adversity well. All right, now let's see how they respond to this particular adversity. They're going to go on the road. They're going to be away from the friendly confines. They're going to be a favorite to win this game versus Purdue. And, they're going to need to take care of business in this one. And then they're going to come home for another conference game against a team that plays a physical brand of football and has a very good coach in Greg Schiano. And that guy is going to be watching the film from this game, and he is going to look for those holes, and he is going to try to, find areas where they can take advantage of Nebraska. And their pass rush is going to try to get through the offensive line and get to Dylan Raiola. Like, okay, so how do they respond to that? And then, I think Indiana could present a lot of challenges just given the way in which they play offense. And then, of course, it's Ohio State. But it's like we saw them come out very, very well last year to that loss, to like the worst loss of the whole season in terms of scoreboard. Will last night be the worst loss of the year in terms of margin of victory? Probably not. The Ohio State game will probably be worse. But it's like, all right, so now how do they respond to this moment? Last year, they responded well. Can they do it again? If they win the next 3, then they're going to a bowl. If they win the next 2, they're setting themselves up still, pretty well. If they go 1-2, though, I mean, then you got a whole host of questions.
Yep. Yeah. Look, given what you know now, what you know Nebraska is, or as much as you know of what Nebraska is for 4 games, how would you describe, Josh, just like the way that they need to win games now? What type of a game are they playing? Is it a shootout? Is it like, and this is keeping in mind, obviously, you overreact to some things after a loss, and some things are true issues with this team. But if you had to describe it now, how you think their best chance, the type of game plan, if I'm making sense, to win games, what do you think it is, especially these next 3?
All right, so I want to look at real quick scores of games they lost last year outside of Colorado and Michigan. They lost by scores of 13-10, 20-17, 13-10, 24-17, and 13-10. Jesus Christ, 3 13-10 games. So last night was 31-24. I think that it's going to be similar in that the games could be 1 scores, but you're like adding points to the equation. Defense is a little bit worse. Offense is a little bit better. And so how are they going to win games? Shootout, I feel like is maybe too strong of a word because it implies like 38-35, but certainly like high 20s. I think that now that the offense is going to have to score unless again we're wrong on Illinois and Nebraska's defense is fine, which I don't think is going to be the case. Nebraska's offense is probably going to have to get to 27 to 30 points in some of these games. Probably not next week. And somebody asked DWS, what will the spread be next week? Good question. I was wondering the same thing.
Depends what Purdue does today.
Yeah, probably. I don't know. 10 points maybe is what I would guess. Maybe around a touchdown. My guess is it'll be double.
Unless they go in and beat Oregon State.
They go in and beat Oregon. But they just got the shit kicked out of them by Notre Dame. So I feel like Nebraska will be a double-digit favorite. So it's like maybe they don't have to get to 30 next week versus Purdue, but certainly versus Rutgers, can you get to 30? Indiana, can you get to 31? Can you get to 35? Like, I feel like that's oddly going to be the name of the game. And, honestly, Jack, all of this, how do they win games? They got to finish. They have to finish drives. I don't think we have mentioned the interception yet today that is wrestled away from Nayor in the end zone. Like, that happens. They have the other drive that ends in the field goal, and then they have the final drive that ends in the missed field goal. That's 3 drives where you get 3 points, and you had the ball. And hell, throw in the overtime drive as well, right? 25-yard line to start. So they had 4 times where they get to the 25-yard line or better, and they have 3 points. Like, that's the difference.
You asked me if it felt like last year, and to continue to answer that question, One reason the losses last year, one reason it didn't is because they didn't lose the turnover battle, right?
Yeah.
They're not somehow they still did that without losing the turnover battle, which is crazy, right? You would have if you would have been if you would have told they were where they were on turnovers and even on them, you would have felt even better, I think, about tonight than you ended up feeling. One thing real quick about Purdue. Illinois played tons of man last night. Purdue, Ryan Walters is like a zone guy through and through. And so, it's going to be a really different look defensively. I don't know if that's going to be good or bad. I tend to try. I think Ryle obviously is really good at reading coverages. I think that hopefully bodes well for Nebraska. Again, I want to see what Purdue's able to do defensively. Purdue had so many other studs on defense leave last year too, which was just crazy. Like they had some dudes, even though they weren't particularly good, and they all left up front on defense. And so I think, I think that game is going to be about. And it'll be interesting to see how much Oregon State is able to put up on Purdue, but the Nebraska offense is going to have to. Yeah, exactly what you said, Josh. I mean, they're going to have to be you're going to want them to be in the 30s. You're going to want them to be in the 30s in that game.
Going back to the point spread thing, DW said, whoa, 10 seems like a lot on the road. So I just went quickly and looked at the SP Plus numbers. And Purdue's SP Plus right now, coming into the weekend, is minus 5.4. Nebraska's SP Plus going into the weekend was 12.4. So you add those together. I said in the chat it was 17. It's actually closer to 18. And then if you do the 3-point home field advantage thing, that's a 2-touchdown favorite. My guess, again, like I said, is going to be closer to 10. DW says Purdue must be horrid. They are garbage. They are so bad. They lost 66-7 to Notre Dame, right? Wasn't that the final score? Just a really gross football game. So they're not good. I'm not buying into Ryan Walters in year 2. So that said, sleepy atmosphere. I bet that there is going to be thousands of empty seats, and this is going to be a game that Nebraska.
And if you give Hudson Card a ton of time, I mean, Allmeyer just hasn't ever been a world beater. Hudson Card's the same thing for Purdue, right? He's a guy with a ton of experience, and if you give him time, we'll see. So you just can't do that. And then they got Athan, right, against Rutgers.
Yeah.
I mean, Indiana and Rourke's going to be the best quarterback that they see probably out of any of these, to be honest.
You talking about just in the next 3 or the whole rest?
Yeah,
of the
next
season?
up until I'm kind of looking at that pot of games. Yeah. In this next group, you've got
by far
Rourke for Indiana is probably the best quarterback out of that group if and when he's healthy. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Jack, should we get to the Saturday flight? A Saturday that I know people are very, very excited to watch.
Real quick,
football.
by the way.
Yeah.
Positive thing to say. You didn't want this to happen. I'm really glad it happened on a Friday night and not a Thursday and not a Saturday. If you're going to lose on a Friday night because the weekend isn't over, right? It would suck if this were Sunday morning already. Gives you a little bit of a buffer, right, until the games start again on the next day. And so you've got that. And it's not like a Thursday where you got to work the next day and talk about it. So cheers to Friday games. If you're going to lose games, lose them on Friday nights. I support that.
Oh, thank you, Nebraska, for not totally ruining everyone's lives as we look ahead to the games. I'm putting out the thing on Twitter as well, and we will get to it. The Saturday, what was that, Jack? What are you laughing at?
The chat hated my take.
Oh, okay, nice. Yeah, I am. I'm in a bad place right now. I'm not that excited either, so I stand with the chat on this one. Let's get to it. Saturday flight. We begin, of course, with the early games, which start in less than an hour. Jack, it's a rough early slate. If you haven't mowed your lawn, now would be the time to do it and get it out of the way before later on. Marshall at Ohio State on Fox. Yuck. NC State at Clemson on ABC. Also gross. Florida, Mississippi State, honestly, it might be the most intriguing one in this window just because, maybe they fire Billy Napier tonight.
At halftime of that game if they're down by 10.
And how about this? How about the Kansas-West Virginia game being, so much more interesting, before the season versus today?
But you, as a Nebraska fan, and this is reaching, I understand, but I guess it would be nice if Kansas goes in there and looks awesome against West Virginia doing the super transitive thing. If you're really looking for something to make you feel a little bit better, I guess you could do that. I think they will too. I think Kansas will look better. I like them to win that game. Yeah,
they've been disappointing so far this year.
Yeah,
so
they really have.
That's the early window. Let's go to the afternoon, which has some bangers. USC at Michigan, certainly a fascinating matchup for this one. I like the Trojans, but I also like Nebraska to win, so take what I say with a grain of salt. That's on CBS. Utah at Oklahoma State. Jack, the latest on Cam Rising is that he has a game time decision. So good luck to the.
I mean,
the Utah
didn't they say that every game last year too, and he never played?
Correct. Yeah. Correct.
Okay.
Todd Furman told John and I yesterday on our show that he thinks if Cam Rising plays, that's actually good for Oklahoma State.
Oh, interesting.
How banged up he is. Yeah, I tend to agree with Todd on that one.
All right, it's the old man quarterback game there between him and Bowman.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The Big 12 clash between Arizona State and Texas Tech on Fox Sports 1. And Jack mentioned a few minutes ago, Rutgers and Virginia Tech, ACC
There's the one
network.
to watch.
Yeah,
Hope you have the ACC network. That'll be good. I mean, I don't
get some scouting in on Nebraska's opponent.
Yeah, yep. A little Ethan time up there in Blacksburg. They're pretty pumped. Metallica's coming there, so they're psyched about that. I know.
Indeed. So that is what we'll be watching in the mid-afternoon window at night. One ranked on ranked game. It's funny, Jack. This is a game that I really like. One team. I think Tennessee is going to smoke Oklahoma, but I'm also really excited for this game. I can't wait to see. I can't wait. Oh yeah, I can't wait to see what happens there. That game is on ABC. That's the Fowler and Herb Street special. Battle for the Pig on NBC. Iowa at Minnesota. Who do you like in this one?
I like Iowa, but I would love to see Minnesota win it. It would warm my heart. You know, one of the things that I've always taken solace in after a loss is other people's pain, and I'm about to hopefully enjoy a lot of it today. That would be a delight. But I like Iowa to win that one in typical 13-10 fashion or 17-14, that kind of thing.
Real quick, Jack, before we get back to the games, a couple comments. Husker from you. I'm replacing the cracked glass on top of my stove. Only $550. F my life. Yeah, when it rains, it pours. Also adds, I'm so fucking tired of the Cam Rising situation. Not a bad take. And let's see. Mark asked, will you guys stay on and talk for 12 more hours? I need it today. To which I say, no, I'm tired.
I'm glad that it was that after all of the kind of angst we were going through in the hour and a half that we were talking, that we can be helpful for people. That's good.
That's very, very nice. Baylor at Colorado on Fox.
Yeah.
If Colorado's going to go to a bowl game, I feel like this is a game they need to win, right? Like, it's a pretty important.
Yeah, how bad? Again, in the opposite I was saying about Kansas, like how bad do you feel if you're a Nebraska fan if Baylor comes in, if Dave Aranda on a scorching hot seat comes in and puts Dion down in Boulder after this game?
Yeah.
And he might, by the way. Definitely might.
And then a very odd game that's an ACC matchup. Cal at Florida State. Have you seen, Jack, the memes, the Cal memes that are going on in the world right now?
It's been pretty dang funny. Yes.
If they deliver an 0-4 start for
Tallahassee and Woke Campbell Stadium. Yes, I've seen it. It's hilarious.
Very, very good. Very, very good. And then finally, the Sickos window. Again, just 3 games this weekend. Portland State at Boise on FS1. Kansas State at BYU. I'll be long in bed by the time this game is at halftime, let alone over. So I can't wait to wake up tomorrow morning and find out what happened. And then if you have something called T1 Sports, a.k.a. an illegal stream, Northern Iowa.
Huddle. That's Huddle.
Hawaii. Oh, do you have access to this, Jack?
I did. I watched some high school games on it before.
Classic.
I don't know if you need a separate subscription.
You don't have HBO Max, but you have this. You are just the strangest person.
Honestly, I mean, not to brag, but they actually let me Huddle. Some people in Huddle actually let me test run it for some high school sports back in the day. So,
but yeah, if you want to watch that, Northern Iowa's at Hawaii. I believe that's a 10:59 kickoff. So you can watch that game on there. So that's the
again
Saturday.
One that can make you feel a lot better. Northern Iowa goes in there and rolls the bows. You feel a lot about yourself if that can happen. So listen, there are ways that you can get happy today. All of you who didn't like me and my optimism about turning the page from Friday and going to Saturday, cheer for the transitive property, enjoy other people's pain. There are things you can do to sort of reframe your grief after that game. And I'd encourage you to do that today.
Well, I got an email about Bo Pelini, so that's where some of my listeners are at.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Overreaction is a funny thing. And I don't mean that in terms of the name of the show, but there's a reason why it's named what it is. So things are going to... things never stay the same for an entire season for the good or the bad. They just don't. They very, very rarely do. So we're going to come out of another one of these games We're still gonna have multiple moments, Josh. We'll come out of this game where things look weirdly good all of a sudden, and then probably yet again where they've looked weirdly bad in ways we never expected during the course of this year. That's what I've learned about watching football for a long time.
Well, Jack, what do we have? What do we have upcoming over the next week and change?
It's a good question for those who are board members. We do have a board meeting on Monday. Josh and I are very excited about, and so you guys know who you are if you're going to be in that. And then our regular Wednesday night show. If you're a club member, that's at 8:00. You can see it live with us. Then you can get the YouTube link. You can watch it live via YouTube. You can get in the Discord during it if you're a club member. If you're not a club member, become one and join us on Wednesday night when we do this again. And maybe a few more days have passed, Josh. We learn a little bit more about what the coaches have had to say. It'll be interesting to see if we have a different tone and if the chat has a different tone. You can be a part of that by going to patreon.com/i80club. If you want to wait a couple of days, we do put it out for public consumption on Friday. But of course, it's a couple of days stale by that point. But either way, if you want to make sure you subscribe to the YouTube page, so you know when that's. And then Saturday, club only.
Two shows
Saturday.
On Saturday.
Yep, club only in the morning. So we'll come back with a whole lot more energy. I'll probably be shotgunning.
Oh, by that point, you'll be saying Nebraska's going to beat Purdue by 30.
You're right. I will. I won't even. I'm not even going to.
I'm looking forward to. I can't wait for next Saturday, Jack. We've all been down today. Next Saturday, Jack, will be nice.
This sucks that we had to put this stain on the Saturday morning coffee show. You know, we should have called it something else today. I don't even want to. I don't want to stain our branding of the coffee morning.
It's very sad. It's very sad. I was so pumped for this all week long, and then driving home last night, I was like, "Wow, that show's gonna suck tomorrow." People are gonna blame the offense when it was the defense's fault.
But I just did want to point out, Josh, this was a unique one. We made it public because of the weird schedule. Saturday morning coffee is always for club members only. So that's a great reason to become a member of the clubs. You can always join us for coffee and pregame. Trust me, it's so much more fun pregame. It's less about kind of therapy. It's more about excitement and hype and fun and those sorts of things. And then we will be back to react again Saturday night. Now, that is going to be public like we're doing today. And hopefully, Josh, it is after a win. That would be very nice.
We also have some other stuff upcoming. If you missed it this week, we did talk about Nebraska and if they're good with Alex Kirshner, so maybe you wouldn't want to watch that 5-minute portion of the of the Plus One pod at this moment in time. But great conversation with Alex that you can check out on our YouTube page if you are not a subscriber. It is also available in the podcast feed for both patrons and for non-patrons alike. So go subscribe to that, and you can check out that. We have other interviews scheduled in the coming weeks with Max Olson of ESPN, with Doug Marie, drinking game of Kings of the North. We're very excited for that one, among other people, and we're trying to put together something right now with, if you saw maybe a corny post yesterday, I think it was in the College Football Channel, you'll know what that's about. So we're trying to put together something else at this moment in time. Also, Sam, who I don't think I've seen him here this morning, LeShun, he, when he was not posting in all caps yesterday, he said that we should try to have JT O'Sullivan, who, have you seen this? Have you heard about this? He does his QB school. He's done a video about Dylan Raiola. So I was like, you know what? I'll just shoot him an email to see if he wants to come on and talk about Dylan Raiola. So
cool.
So yeah.
Awesome.
So yes. And
again,
then
subscribe to the YouTube channel to get the stuff that we put out free. Even if you're not going to do the Patreon, you don't want to do the Discord thing, you don't want to pay any money, just subscribe to the YouTube channel because you'll get a bunch that way too.
Yeah, like and subscribe. So yeah, that's what we have coming up. Again, patreon.com/IDClub. We would love to have you as a member, and hopefully, Jack, things are a little bit better next week.
This is rock bottom. We just hit rock bottom. It's all up from here.
Don't say it in the moment. Don't say that to John. Hey, when you hop on Monday, say that to John.
Hey, again, man, I don't know why am I more upbeat than everybody still? I don't know, man. Weird.
You got a good night of sleep. Everyone else is tired, and you're like, ooh, see.
I have been bizarro, Jack, for everything this entire season. Capped the optimism at the beginning, right? Wasn't as excited as I should have been after they beat Colorado. Was holding back on the excitement after Northern Iowa. Now, I'm kind of flatlining it a little bit.
You have.
This year.
Shout out to you. You have been very consistent in terms of your takes all year long.
Thank you. It's
all right, so we'll be back Wednesday night for patrons. And like Jack said, if you're a member of the board, we will have our board meeting on Monday night. Jack, enjoy the football today.
See you later. I will. Bye, everybody. Have a great day. See ya on the